realm of possibility. However, this deviates from the account presented in the novel. The ensuing scenes depict a brutal and humbling thrashing that thoroughly subdues our cherished protagonist. Mord audaciously engaged in physical combat with the literal god of his lineage, instead of opting for a peaceful dialogue to address his inquiries. The entire confrontation served as a sobering lesson for Mord, as his conviction in his divine heritage rapidly dissipated, mirroring the depletion of mana within him. With each blow delivered by the zealous deity, who reveled in chastising an arrogant adolescent, or perhaps anyone audacious enough to provoke him. After enduring every onslaught hurled his way, God Bernos took it upon himself to effortlessly subdue the impudent youth, utilizing nothing more than fundamental fisticuffs and sheer finesse. The disparity in strength, the lopsided pummeling, the psychological trauma inflicted by a deity essentially akin to one's grandfather, and the involuntary reversion from his augmented state to normalcy were the necessary elements to compel Mord's surrender. For without such intervention, he would have been unequivocally deceased. At last, they arrived at a point of discourse, where God Bernos divulged to Mord that he was the inaugural descendant to rouse him from his slumber. He further repeatedly denounced him as feeble when Mord inquired as to the duration of his dormancy. God Bernos was incapable of comprehending the numerical value and persistently reiterated his query until the reality permeated his consciousness. It had been 5 centuries. The rationale for the prior undisturbed nature of his sleep was that his progeny had engaged in a conflict, a struggle for the inheritance of his throne, following his departure as a deity. The vanquished faction absconded with the clandestine knowledge of the dungeon. However, it was only upon the allegiance of one of these individuals to Aiden's cause that Aiden had secured global harmony. In the source material, however, Mord had accomplished this feat 7 years prior. The god Bernos stood disillusioned, disheartened that his progeny had wrought such chaos in his absence. This was particularly humiliating for him, due to the volatile temperament he had inflicted upon his lineage as a curse. Following this dialogue, the deity inquired of Mord if he possessed any insight into the subsequent events, now that he had roused him from slumber. But Mord remained oblivious to the unfolding circumstances. Mord flatly denied any knowledge of the situation. Mord was convinced he would achieve global harmony by offering his blood to the divine effigy. However, it appears the original intent was entirely different. The deity Bernos orchestrated this labyrinth to compel his progeny to master absolute control over their celestial bloodline, an awakening drawn directly from the wellspring itself. This technique, bestowed by the god himself, is known as divine blood embodiment. Mord challenges the dubious methodology of this inheritance, but Bernos contends that he was uncertain if all his descendants would possess the requisite merit to be deemed worthy. The celestial blood within his lineage became progressively weaker with each successive generation, a consequence of intermingling with mortal blood. And even if they possessed the capacity to acquire the technique, none had demonstrated the aptitude. 5 centuries had elapsed. Hence, the labyrinth, the sepulchre of the god of strife, serves as a proving ground for the Bernos bloodline, ensuring the transmission of the deity's sacred knowledge. The path to mastering this technique lies in embodying divine blood and harmonizing it with the user's innate instincts. This explains why Archduke Bernos is an antagonist in the source material. He was forced to undergo a forbidden rite akin to potent performance enhancers due to his inherent weakness. Mord rejoices at stumbling upon such a fortuitous discovery, as he desperately requires an accelerated training period to achieve his ultimate potential. However, it's been foreshadowed that the necessary training demands Mord endure relentless beatings, repeatedly, until the blows themselves etch the technique into his very being. Under typical circumstances, this would prove fatal, leading to swift demise. But within this peculiar dungeon, wounds and mana regenerate at an accelerated pace, rendering the frequency of his injuries inconsequential. This further suggests the deity's inherent sadism, as this clearly serves as his method of subjecting individuals to perpetual torment. Furthermore, Mord encounters another unexpected occurrence when his fractured rib instantaneously mends. He is destined to confront the 10-year-old prodigy, a juvenile incarnation of the god Bernos instead of the seasoned warrior. This instills a modicum of confidence in Mord, leading him to believe he can handle the challenge.